So this is Barl Fleischman from the Tikkun Elevator Kollel. I am the lift manager. We need to understand where we are in history. We have a tremendous book in front of us, which is called Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Jew? Let me see if I can get a better focus. Doing the best I can there. So Rabbi Shor asked the question, why the Jews? Let's try to understand why Jewish hatred exists. It is very perplexing and enigmatic because so many different reasons have been given to explain and to justify it. So many reasons for anti-Semitism. American Jews have had other recent wake-up calls, not just the 2018 Pittsburgh Tree of Life synagogue attack, where 11 were killed, but in 2019, a white supremacist opened fire in the synagogue in the small town of Poway, California. Months later, and thousands of miles away, a black supremacist attacked a congregation with a machete in Muncie, New York, a New York town with a large Jewish population. The two bigots of different races on opposite sides in the United States disagreed on which of them belonged to the master race, but both hated Jews enough to attack and kill. The Poway shooter credited Hitler and accused the Jews of a meticulously planned genocide of the European race. The Muncie slasher claimed that Jews had surprised the true Ebenoid Israelites. The word was usurped the true Ebenoid Israelites and searched for German Jewish temples to attack. One killer says Jews as the enemies of white Europeans, while others say Jews as white Europeans. But both were convinced that the Jews posed a threat to their identities and to the world. These two attacks were part of a 14% surge in anti-Semitic hate crimes in 2019, resulting in more than 1,000 victims. Even though Jews are less than 2% of the American population, 60% of all religious-based hate crimes targeted Jews. In all, 88% of American Jews say that anti-Semitism is a problem. 82% believe that it is rising, and 25% say that they have personally experienced an anti-Semitic incident. All of that was before October 7th, when anti-Jewish religious hate crimes were already 6 times more common in the U.S. than the next largest category. Since then, the numbers have exploded. On college and university campuses, the number of anti-Semitic incidents rose by more than 700% since the previous year. The ADL recorded that a total of 2,031 anti-Semitic incidents in the U.S. in the last 2 months following the attack of October 7th. The numbers were up from 465 incidents during the same period in 2022, representing a 337% increase year over year. Britain has recorded thousands of anti-Semitic incidents after the outbreak of the war in Israel, making 2023 the worst year for UK anti-Semitism since they began recording such data, and a 2024 survey found that 96% of European Jews experienced anti-Semitism in their daily lives. One poll shows that 1 billion people around the world harbor anti-Semitic attitudes, from Eastern Europe to Sub-Saharan Africa, and from Asia to South America. A few million Jews somehow generate the resentment and hatred of 100 times that number of people. The enigmatic nature of anti-Semitism makes it so that people like the 2 synagogue attackers who agree on nothing else, who would even be willing to kill each other, are even more willing to kill Jews. Nations, creeds, and ideologies who can agree on nothing else will agree on one thing, that is to hate the Jews. Sunni Muslim and Shia Muslims hate each other intensely, but that has not prevented the Sunni Hamas from cozying with their patrons, the Islamic Shia Republic of Iran. Much like arch enemies Hitler and Stalin, who both plotted to massacre Jews, are the biblical Midianites and Moabites historical rivals who united to oppose the Jewish people and the return to Israel from Egypt. This has always been the case. Today in the U.S. and Europe, the progressive leftist campus activists join hands with radical Islamist supporters in an odd couple red-green alliance, and despite being dramatically opposed on most core values, they come together to fight against the Jewish state. Now, these are places that were pulled. I'm not sure of the Americas, Western Europe. I don't know if you could see this. Let me get this down even better. So I don't know how well this can be seen, and let me put a light on it. Doesn't help much. This says the Americas, so it looks like Mexico. This is Western Europe, Middle East and North Africa, all this area. Eastern Europe. These are places, Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa. Global results. So here's what it says like this. Total number of populations of countries surveyed. So in these different places there was a survey. There were a total of 4,161,578,905 people that were surveyed. He says, of those people in the world harbor anti-Semitic attitudes. 1,090 of those people, look, said it wrong, 1,090,000,000 people hold anti-Semitic attitudes. Now, these are places, a lot of places Jews don't live and never lived. But let's go on. So figure 1, he explains global distribution of anti-Semitic attitudes. The map shows the percentage of adults harboring anti-Semitic attitudes across various regions. Now, it's not easy to read in this book, so the percentages, let's see if I can get it down closer. See if I can get this to work. To be careful with the camera. So he says sub-Saharan Africa is 20%, 23% hold anti-Semitic attitudes. The Americans, he says, is 19%. Then you get other places. He says Western Europe, 24%. Middle East and North Africa, well, it's 74%. Eastern Europe, 34%. And what is this? This is Asia, 22%. Let me see if I can bring this back up. Keep working. Oh. So he says, let's read it again. The highest prevalence is in, of course, the Middle East and North Africa. These are the Arab countries, the Muslim countries. Followed by Eastern Europe. Oh, that's wonderful, where we had a wonderful time in Poland and Russia. And Western Europe, 24%. The global index score indicates that 20%, 26% of the world's adult population, equating to 1.09 billion people, of the 4.1 billion adults surveyed, hold anti-Semitic views. In 1843, Karl Marx, author of the Communist Manifesto, ranted, what is the worldly religion of the Jew? Huckstering. What is his worldly God? Money. Money is the jealous God of Israel, in the face of which no other God may exist. Almost a century later, in 1935, Joseph Goebbels, the propaganda boss of Nazi Germany, denounced, it was the Jew who discovered Marxism. It is the Jew who for decades past has endeavored to stir up the world revolutions through the meaning of Marxism. To the Nazis, the Jews embodied Judeo-Bolshevism, and to the arch-enemy communists, Judeo-Fascism. The inherent contradictions of the two synagogue killers have always been with us. In the decades leading up to the Holocaust, the greatest mass slaughter of Jews in history, Jews were accused of having invented both religion and atheism, of being nationalists and internationalists, radicals and bourgeois, for inflicting on mankind morality and immorality, capitalism and socialism. Anti-Semitism is filled with paradoxical contradictions. The Jews are seen as both powerful and weak. The Jews are accused of being utterly worthless, Untermenschen, subhumans, as the Nazi called them, and yet are deemed to be exerting too much influence, engineering human history and current events in a world where they constitute only 0.2% of the population. When the financial crisis hit Asia in 1997, Prime Minister Mahathir of Malaysia blamed an international Jewish conspiracy. The Jews rule this world by proxy, he insisted. The coronavirus pandemic led to a record number of anti-Semitic incidents in the UK. Alt-righters in America took to calling the Jew flu. And Palestinian Prime Minister Shtayyeh claimed that Israel's soldiers were trying to spread the virus through the door handles of cars. There is no accusation too implausible for anti-Semitism to take root. Anti-Semitism is reinvented in every generation. Jews are called God-killers. They are condemned as an impure race, and in modern times they are labeled as colonialist oppressors. As the economist George Gilder explains, today this choice of being anti-Semitic or not, with all its relentless implications, is focused not on the Jews in the neighborhood, but on the Jews as a nation, that is Israel. In other words, anti-Semitism has morphed again. Now it's often cloaked in the legitimate dislike of Israeli policies, the complexities of which we will explore further as we go through our texts. The Jews were taunted as cowards in Europe, even when they had fought bravely in every European army, from that of the Tsar in the farthest east to the United Kingdom in the west, and yet, when they fought for themselves in their regained ancient homeland, they were dubbed as warmongers and savages. The Jews are accused of terrorism when they fight for their freedom, and then accused of oppression once they had won it. When Israel fights, it's condemned. When it withdraws, as it did from Lebanon and Gaza, it ignored and denounced. Philosopher Eric Hoffer said it wryly in a memorable 1968 Los Angeles Times article. Other nations, when victorious on the battlefield, dictate peace terms. But when Israel is victorious, it must sue for peace. Everyone expects the Jews to be the only real Christians in this world. The sheer hope of global opposition to Israel, and I read that wrong, it is the sheer scope of global opposition to Israel, a tiny democratic nation the size of New Jersey that is nevertheless the nearly exclusive focus of UN Security Council condemnations, appears entirely irrational except from this perspective of anti-Jewish bias. The eternal hatred of Jews, often leading to genocide, has flowed through the bloodiest rivers of a civilization for thousands of years. It began in Egypt, where Jewish children were drowned, continued to Persia with a decree for physical annihilation, and persisted through the Greek campaign of cultural genocide. The Roman Empire's destruction of Jerusalem and the subsequent cruel exile, the persecution in Europe under Christianity, and the horrors of the Holocaust are all part of this dark history. Today, this hatred fragments into numerous streams, flowing globally through the multi-generational wars and radical Islamic terror of the Arab Muslim world. Jews remember some of these episodes in Passover, Purim, Hanukkah. These are our holidays, and many other feasts and fasts. These traditions serve as poignant reminders that Jew hatred has endured as long as there have been Jews. Now, something I want to add to myself is that the word Sinai, we received the Torah at Mount Sinai, but Sinai is the language of hate. It means Sina. Sina is the word for hate. From the moment that we got that Torah, this happens. As we celebrate our improbable victories over more powerful oppressors, we often summarize our survival with the catchphrase, "They tried to kill us, we won, let's eat." We belittle our own battles and victories because they've become predictable. We know that the bigotry is nothing new. As Tom Lehrer sang in National Brotherhood Week, "Oh, the Protestants hate the Catholics, and the Catholics hate the Protestants, and the Hindus hate the Muslims, and everybody hates the Jews." Science fiction writer Dan Simmons mused, "What common element will bind 2001 and 3001? The answer, when it arrived, hit me with the full nausea of certainty. The one constant thread between today and 1,000 years from now will be that someone, somewhere, will be planning to kill the Jews." Simmons' answer appears absurd in the fantastic milieu of flying cars and spaceships, and yet it is historically inescapable as the one constant that endures across different eras and cultures. This is Baruch Fleischman, and we've been getting an earful from Rabbi Shore. Who's afraid of the big bad Jew?